Video 4, changing the psychic, energetic dynamics between self and others. That's kind of what I want to work with in this video 4. And the reason where I want to go with this one is I want to shift our perception of what we could say the outer inner connection points, which are connected to the emotional field, into the inner middle domain, inner domain, perception level where we work telepathically, as well as having encounters and are energetically in connection with what we call an intergalactic community with its own rules, its own levels of laws and political systems and trade systems, a complete different reality, which we are, those of us who have been selected under these different programs are getting ready to learn to deal with that as we are slowly but surely adapting our inner capacities to be able to deal with these other worlds as part of our everyday life. So that's kind of also part of the path cutter and the change maker and the chaos pilot, is that those of us who are on this path of full awakening into the original worlds that we used to be part of, and not an awakening as an ascension going back to source and everything's good and fine and we'll just get home, we'll be happy and joyful, but really awakening into, you are in a sector that for a long time has been excluded from what we call most of the realities that it's part of, which has prevented us from seeing these realities. But that does not mean that they do not exist. And we are being ready, those of us who are the change makers that are changing into the forerunners and later on becoming the pioneers of that group of humans that are going to do the transition. And the transition begins with rebuilding our energy system, because the energy system is the looking glass. That's the tool to be able to connect to the density energies. And even though you might not think about it in your everyday life, the reason why you're observing this reality you're part of is because your physical form is here, but technically it consists of atoms that is made of emptiness. So it's kind of energies, fields that are interacting with other fields to give you that physical form that's yours, as well as the quantum morphogenetic field that are connecting you to the old construction, as I talk about in the Tarology book. So that's why that has been put in there. Today I just call it the biofield for the sake of easiness, and not because or to link up to because technically the morphogenetic field is a Robert Sheldrake that came up with that idea, and he's not off, but it's just not functional for where I want to go. And the problem with using the theories of others are that they are part of factions, they are part of different programs, and when you link into their thought forms and their information systems, you link into the energy, as you have learned in the lower participation. So what you focus on, you give energy, and what you give energy, you become part of. And if I want to reconstruct my mental field to be able to perceive the original solar system fields and the original holographic levels and what used to be part of this reality field as I recall it, then it's of no use to me, for me to use information systems produced of others that are connected to Atlantis. So that's also part of the broader understanding as a path cutter, to cut loose the information systems that do not provide you with the energy that you need to build your perception field from. Because that's what we're doing when we work with complex information systems. We are rebuilding our mental field into being able to hold density energy. So we must select the density sciences, and that's some of the path cutter abilities as well. Understanding discernment is a sword. It's a sword that cuts loose the energetic thought patterns and thought forms that is of no use to us. And I'm deliberately saying patterns as a holographic grid and forms as what can be created if you use symbols, if you use different forms of vibrational energy. If you have a thought form, you put in vibrational energy or an emotional energy or astral energy. you will then create something that even though you are in a mental process, you will still be affected emotionally by it. And that's some of the things that we need to change in the self-other dynamics when we talk about being part of the intergalactic communities, because they don't have emotionality. Emotionality, as we know of it, is a feature that keeps us stuck inside the reality program under the old world order, prohibiting technologies. And I discovered that at a very young age, when kind of looking around people and what do they use, what are they doing with their lives as a kind of, how can they fill out every day doing the same thing, getting up, go to work and whatever, and the hamster wheel, how can they do that? They can do that because they are emotionally always in some kind of program, always in some kind of, if only this, if only that, if he loved me, she loved me, or anger, or whatever emotional processes that's going on, that's consuming the entirety of the energy of the physical form, so that the physical form can just be enslaved and do the slave work, while the mind that should work with complex information systems and breach the barrier are being stuck in an emotionality drill and rotundum or merry-go-round yo-yo effect, where all energies are put into the emotionality of things. And even people that feel that they are very mental and very scientific, they have emotionality connected to that. There is a defense mechanism that pushes them to be very mental and very arguing, or very rigid in their processing of different forms of information. That's all based upon emotionality. It's nothing to do with mental, rational processes that might argue and make it sound like that. But the reason why they are being so good at arguing for their case is because they have emotion. They are emotionally invested in it. It's a program. It means something for them to be right. It means something for them to be a success. It means something for them to be able to be brilliant within a specific topic. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that as a kid, I felt enormously stupid at school. Not that I wasn't, there were reasons why I was not always present in school time, as most of my energy field were always somewhere else, part of these what we call, I would like to call them recreational programs, not as in leisure time, but part of the military project programs that were going on here in Denmark, which are not as similar to what the programs that have been going on in Australia or in Britain or in America. So there are different versions of the different groups that have been selected portions of their humanity or their factions or their human projects to be the bridges into what we could call the intergalactic community. And that's technically the fourth, there could be a fourth course. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, but if I am going to make a fourth course, it will be about the bridge makers. That's that group of us that have been chosen to do the transition, and by that have been part of upgrading programs, whether we wanted it or not, or harvesting programs or whatever, because it shifts. Sometimes we're being harvested, sometimes we're being pushed somewhere else, all depending on which faction and which group that is now in control of our reality program. So we can't really say, yeah, we've been the same our entire life, because that's not the case. Things change, as we know. But the point of the change of the self-other dynamic, when we're talking about the emotional field, we're having us against others, and we're always perceiving others from an emotional viewpoint. And that changes as path cutters when we go into the mental field. There you stop seeing people from an emotional viewpoint, and you begin seeing people as complex information systems. And you say, well, that's cold. And actually, no, it's not. That's where you can cut through the overlay. You can cut through the lower fields and the emotional field, the mental field, and see what's beyond and what is connected to that human. Even if it is a human, it might be a human body, but that's not the same as it is a human. Whereas if you connect emotionally, you will reconnect or connect to the emotional field of the human that's in front of you, and you will correspond on an emotional level. So that will be the emotional field to emotional field interference. And by that, you're not seeing what you're actually dealing with. You are in your mind, because you're running on emotional energy, you are expecting, due to the emotional reciprocity of the energies that you're getting from that human in front of you, that you're actually dealing with another human being that are similar to you. But if you look at it as a complex information system and go up and not be lodged into your mental field programming of this is a human, because that is a program, you respond emotionally and then the program kicks in and blinds you. So you can't see what's in front of you. You'll assume that this is a human due to your belief systems, so what you want to believe about other people. And you will project that onto that human. You will literally not see the other person whatsoever. You will see the emotional response mechanism dynamics that gives you a feedback that feeds into your emotional patterns. And that's all you see. You're literally not seeing the other person. So you can be around other people, and what you are seeing there is your interpretation of them, connected to your emotional field, all depending on how developed your emotional field is. And that's some of the things when we talk about being biased or being chauvinistic or having hatred or a far-right belief systems or whatever. They're viewing people according to their belief systems, according to their norms of what another human is, according to their emotional suppressed material, subconscious material. Most of the time when we look at other people, we're projecting subconscious material onto them. So we're really not dealing with other people when we are around in this reality. And that's how it's been going on for so long. And that's why we got the programs of love and partnership and families and careers and whatever, because that's the interactive program where we can run rampant in our emotionality, to use that expression again. And by that project onto the other people according to our mental belief systems, that are programs that we tap into, that fits our emotional patterns, that fits our karmic patterns, to put it that way. So that's kind of how we live this life. And that's how people can get around and do this. And it is very similar to the movie The Matrix. And also when you know the movie The Matrix, you kind of get the pill and you get out of the program, even though I don't fully agree with the virtual reality setup that's there, but that's how they could make it. It's fine. It is what it is. And you also have the villain that's the spy that kind of sits at a restaurant and have got back into the program, and he's enjoying a steak. Not that is anything for me, but he's saying, oh, I really missed this one. I missed all of these sensors, things that are part of the program. And that is how it is. That's how people are being kept occupied. There are, I would say scavenging, actually. They are always looking for something to fulfill some kind of emotional emptiness. Whether it is physical desire, emotional desire, or whatever it is, it's connected to filling out a need of some sort or an emptiness, so that the vacuum is not felt to a larger degree, always keeping himself or herself busy with some kind of thought process, some kind of study, some kind of link up, some sort of entertainment, some sort of something that prevents people from actually understanding that they are not awake whatsoever, that they are sleepwalkers in an artificial reality. So that's also part of the path cutter, to go beyond these programs and see what's in front of you and really see. And even though you are still trying to get through the overlays and what's going on there, you might discover as well that the artificial fourth dimension plays in with holographic overlay and artificial programs that are not showing you what you're dealing with. Then you have the artificial fifth that is connected to the mental field, that is not showing you really what we're dealing with here. You're just seeing the parasites or the snakes or the programs or the old code systems or whatever you're in alignment with, because what you will then perceive there will be what you have in your energy system as well. It's the expanded projection mechanism that kicks in when you're trying to perceive things from what we call a mental energetic level, let me call it that, or mind field energetic level, instead of the psychic emotionality energetic perception we are now moving into what we call the mental energetic perception, where we use our mind to look at things, the inner sensing, the inner eye, as it said in the old teaching system, the inner chakra ability to look into the many worlds that we have access to once you begin to expand your mind field into being really able to perceive reality here and beyond. And once you begin to work with your mind field, you kind of stop having the inner outer connection and you go into an inner connection. But the inner outer, well, you could say you have you in alignment with, or in concordance to, or in opposition to the outer domain actual program and other humans as something that is segregated from who and what you are. You then begin to understand, as you vibrate up and you get more and more into what we call the true understanding of your vibrational field and the alignment dynamics and how energies interfere with each other and affect each other, and how energy systems talk to energy systems, and how energies are interconnected and communicating with each other. The true organism to understand that's the mind field. That's the brain that will process information in a higher order manner so that you understand what you're dealing with. You're not seeing a human, you're seeing a complex information system composed of different layers of fields that have different functionality that adds into different programs. And the question is there any real human here on this planet? Are you real? Am I real? No, we're not. We are different fields linked up to technology, programs, parasites, code systems, of which some of it is of the past, of which some is of the present, of which some are artificially inserted, of which some are holographic overlays, of which some are connected to the regress genetics we have got inserted in the old world order program fields, etc., etc. So we can't really say this is me, as the Buddhist teaching system also teaches us, as kind of there is no self, not in the idea of an eternal reoccurring self that always is the same, that reincarnates, because that's not the case. And even in your everyday life, you change all the time. You have different features when you're around your mom or your dad or your siblings or your husband or your wife or whatever. You have different roles. So an I is not just an I is a conglomerate of features that are interacting with different forms of energies, and the interpretation of these complex information system encounters defines how you respond to it. And that's where the mind field really begin to kick in with its true functionality. It kicks in with the understanding that you're dealing with information and you are learning to handle that information via your consciousness units. That's the goal of expanding your mind field into the perception field, is that you build the energetic structure from where the radiation field can begin to integrate the consciousness units of the template. So that's the purpose of the mind field and the real functionality of it, as that's the level where you really begin to understand who and what you are and what your true purpose and function is. Because the way you handle complex information systems and the way you handle reality and humans around you, or inner realities, or the alien agenda, or whatever's going on, depends on the type of function and purpose that you have. And that's stored in their consciousness units, whatever's left of them in the higher order energy system, or if you have someone left in your upper template that has still not been integrated because you didn't get far enough into the restoration program before you got hijacked or were put under enslavement, or whatever the reasons and purposes are. So we have different levels. We have got, some have got consciousness units still stored in their upper template. Others have not, but they have consciousness units in their energy systems. And these are the ones I want to focus on more than the rest, because they are already been activated in previous lifetimes, not just here, but in other systems. But that's also where the overlay comes in. And that's where those of us, which is more or less all of us, that have been connected to the artificial fourth and the artificial timelines and via the inserted regress genetics, have been developing what we could say consciousness units and regress genetics or consciousness genetics of the regressed races that were not ours, but they have now become part of our energy system. And as a path cutter, we need also to look at these genetics, even though they are highly viable, and look at them and understand, what do they lead to? Is it prosperous for us to have some really functional insectoid genetics? Yes, we will via these look into the insectoid realities and the artificial fourth and be able to see all the grays and all the things that are going on there. But to be honest, I would rather be without, because I'm sick and tired of all of that level. I've been dealing with it for 6 years now, and it's still there, and it's still being put into my genetics. They still keep uploading it because we have so many insects in our reality, in our physical outer domain enclosure reality. Just think about the flies and the spiders and the bugs and whatever. There's so many critters. It is one of the most impossible genetics to get rid of. So that's part of the upgrading program, because they are pulling, literally, they're using the insectoid genetics as a bridge between the density energies and the frequency network in our brain, because insects, they can go on both the fourth dimension as well as into the frequency level. So that's why they're using that as a bridge. So that's very annoying. Whereas the avian genetics, they are connected to the middle domain and are not, even though we have birds inside our reality, when you look at most of the birds, the smaller birds, the more kind ones, are technically insectoids, but with wings. So they are crossing, they're hybrid. The larger birds are reptoids. So this is where it gets a little bit difficult. But you will, once you learn to read life forms as complex information systems, you will get that information. It will tell you what you're dealing with. The form might be something that you have learned inside the reality, that's the program. This is what it is. But when you learn to read things energetically and with the true understanding of complex information system, and your brain is processing this as genetic information, consciousness, genetic information, energy units, systemic cyclic information, what cycle are they from, why are they here, what are they doing here. Ask these questions whenever you are having a meetup with another life form. Then you will get another answer than if you just run on the enclosure programs as, oh yeah, that's a bird. I learned that that's a blackbird, so that's why it's called that. And you look at it from the program that has been teaching you that is what it is. So you need to see beyond the program. You need to take the red pill and get out of the overlay programs and see things as they truly are. So that's also part of the path cutter abilities, to look at things as they really are and not what you have been taught they are or what you want them to be. Taught them, when we talk about being taught what they are, that's the school indoctrination, or what you find on the internet. It's not inaccurate, it's not false information per se, but it is information that is in alignment with the program or the enclosure you're part of. And we need to go beyond. Again, the movie Matrix, have that get out of the overlay program. Get out of virtual reality, if you want to put it that way. Get out of the invent program. Get out of what they are putting out there as a front, and look beyond, look into the codes as we're also seeing it in the movie The Matrix, and binary codes. And they actually, some of the greys are using binary codes because the binary code is connected to some of the electrochemical processes. So again, we can say there are features in the Matrix series that are not far from the truth. But I would have loved it more if they had worked with complex holographic systems, which they're actually trying to do in the movie Interstellar. But they're not succeeding very well. But that's when he goes into the cube thing. That's an attempt to create a manifold, and that's some of the holographic features where realities are enfolded into each other and are expressing different holographic features that no matter where you look at it, it looks as that nodal point that you're part of, but you can shift the perception and still standing at the same place, and then it will shift into something else like a Chinese doll. And I think in the movie Interstellar, they're trying to do that to the very best of their abilities, including linking out that as he travels back through the black hole, he's actually connecting with the girl, which she saw as someone from the future that were connecting to her, but actually it was him traveling back in time. So that's, again, an interesting feature that's a little bit mind-boggling. So there are definitely, when we talk about the movie Interstellar, there's a lot of things there where you could say, well, that adds in with a lot of the ideas of the solar system nations and some of the Expedition New Earth documentary, where Stephen Hawking and others were talking about trying to get what do we need if we need to colonize another place, the technologies and etc. etc. All of that were looked at and discussed in the movie Interstellar, interestingly enough. But what we must also understand in this one as path cutters is that this is not about, we are transitioning out of this reality, but it will still linger on. And just to tie a bow back to the Expedition New Earth, where people are looking at this planet saying it's overpopulated, it's all going south, so therefore we will develop terraforming technology, we will create biodomes or biospheres, and we'll learn to create artificial atmosphere, etc., on another planet. All of these technologies can be used here. As everything goes south here, our planet will be just as hostile as any other planet that we might travel to, because the outer domain level, on the frequency level, most of the planets have been abandoned. They're all in their decay state. So we might as well just stay put. But what is left is the problem of overpopulation, and I'll just leave that as an open question mark. That is a problem you won't have on a new planet. You will have the opposite, as in kind of how you're going to get enough specimens to continue the human evolution. Sorry about that. So, had a little bit of a tea there. So the point of this one is, when we change the dynamics of self and others, we stop looking at things from an emotional perspective and start looking at things from a complex information system. That everything that we encounter, be it a lamp or an animal or a car or another life form in the outer domain, in the enclosure, or on the inner domains, or wherever it is, all of it is a complex information system, and you switch on your mind field to be able to scan and read the complex information system, so that you get not downloads, but people call it downloads. If I look at a lamp and I just look at from a neural network perspective, I will get the information, oh, that lamp was designed by that and is made of this and that and whatever. The feature is made of clay, there's metal there, there's the shielding of it made of paper, etc., and that's the information I will get. But if I switch into the mind field, out of the frequency network mental field and into the mind field, where I then begin to process it as complex information systems, I will see the architecture behind it. I will see the template of it. I will see the holographic features. I will see the different molecules it's made of, what they link up to, what kind of field they're linking up to, even though I won't be able to describe what it is, because that's a level of science I have not developed any words for yet, because I'm not doing it very often with lamps. Normally I just kind of do it on an atomic level, and just kind of, if we really were to get to the highest skill level on that one, would be to discern the different atomic components. As if I look at a lamp, I would be able to say, yeah, well, it's got a 30% of that kind of electrochemical component or whatever is going on. That would be cool, right? So you could literally, instead of doing a spectral analysis using machines, you would be able to detect what they are. But for me to be able to do so, I would have to have an inbuilt sensing system of the components of the different materials inside this reality program. And most of the time, the problem is it's actually not really there. So that's the problem when I kind of try to look in. Yeah, I could teach myself that signature, that type of atom or element with protons, electrons, and neutrons were in the periodic table, had that number, had that feature, had been classified as that. But then my problem would there be that I would then tap into the information system of others. And I don't do that. I'm not a parrot. It's of no use to me to know what mass or atomic number that are part of some of the chemicals that, or some of the elements that my lamp is made of. But what is of use to me is kind of going in and seeing, well, actually there's a lot of emptiness going on there. Why is that? How does that link up to the reality program? What kind of program upholds the lamp? Is there a drone above it? Or how does that lamp exist? And actually kind of how does these patterns of physical manifestation inside this reality program, how does that be? How do these different elements come to be out of nothingness? We know the quantum field is nothingness. We know its possibilities and probabilities. There are wave patterns and there are particle patterns, which kind of goes with the program, which makes sense being part of the original LPF1 that has vibration and radiation, which are waves and particles. In particles vibrate and radiation have wave properties. So that's kind of the downsized version of that. So that makes sense. And the code systems of the quantum field, so that makes sense as well. So what's the code system behind a lamp when we're talking about that lamp was thought of someone? That makes sense to me. You think about something, but where's the bridge between thinking about something in your mind and actually getting it produced? It's always machines that produce it, right? Or if you do work with clay, which I used to do, well, then you take material from the ground and then you foam it with your hands. And that's understandable. But when we talk about things like paper or anything else that we are not working with our hands, but working with machines, how did these machines get coded to do that? So that's, again, where we really put our mind in process with understanding the programs that are running our reality. How is it possible to think about something and then create the machine that can produce it? What's the link between what we think and what we manifest? Yes, we're taking different materials and put it back and put it together, and we can blend the different materials, and then the machine will come out of it. That will make sense as well. But then how does the machine then learn to produce some? Again, I think you're getting what I'm saying here. And some will say, well, that's completely logical. Yeah, if you use with the in-program mindset, yeah, you skip the steps there. You don't think much about it. Someone made the machine and the machine is making whatever we need. But if you really go beyond the program of the frequency neural network and the idea that things are just kind of, we think about it and then we draw it and then we put the different materials together and then it becomes that machine, there is still this question, how does that even be? And Plato was actually contemplating the same thing. And he thought that there were, that's technically where the word archetypes comes from, or what he called imagos. There were imageries, there were these blueprints in the true level of our reality where nous also existed, the thought forms, the highest level of human existence. There were these divine patterns. I don't think he used the word divine, but others have called it divine patterns that were made by the original. I can't remember if Plato even have by the gods. He must have had the plurals. If Plato had anything, it was the gods. I think it's Aristotle that begins to go into the more the divine mover as the one head, the Godhead as the one most supreme being that were running the wheels of reality. Anyways, look it up on the internet so you kind of get the difference there, because it plays a role when we talk about how have people thought about things come to be inside our reality. And now we're producing so many things all the time, and we stop thinking about how we are producing, how we are taking matter that consists of emptiness and of waves and particles and put it together and create something else. We are sucking our reality field dry of resources when we're doing so, because part of the creation inside this enclosure is that we draw energy from somewhere. We're drawing energy from the reality networks. The different races are doing that as well, but they have technology that runs that. So what is our enclosure technology alignment with? For instance, I know for a certainty that most of our computers are run on what we call reverse engineered type of Pleiadian technology or Orion technology. So, but we have made it into ours, and by that not thought much of it, or the prototypes were developed by some of the covert military projects, right, that were working with aliens. And then it was put out into factories where the secrecy of the origin of the architecture were hidden, and you just got the blueprint, you're doing that, and then you made the machines do it. But are these machines that are creating this semi-alien technology inside our reality, are they actually linked up to alien technology themselves under cube technology that runs the code systems that ensures that chips can be made? And even though humans are doing the little tiny things, it's still amazing that that is possible. So the chip technology, miniature version of everything, nanotechnology, etc., where does these ideas come from, and who seeds it into the human mind? And that's part of the reality programs that we're dealing with here. So again, when we talk about the virtual reality programs and the artificiality of our reality that controls our belief systems and makes us skip steps of how things come to be, and prevents us from asking the right questions, are also preventing us from really investigating the information system that we have in front of us, because our brain will quickly skip to the programs that is stored into the neural network to find the answers, instead of investigating every single thing that we encounter as from complete, wow, this is new, I've never seen it before. Once we have seen something and we have decided that that is what it is, then our mind will always pick that solution for the complex information system when we encounter it again, which means that we get lazy. Our brain is built to be lazy. It is built to skip steps so that we do not get out of that rabbit hole of these programs and belief systems, similar as we talked about the spiritual teaching systems that were built upon certain traps for the emotional features. The mind that goes with the mental field and the way we're processing information are built upon technologies and programs that makes us skip steps, that makes us not see things, that makes us, once we have decided that this is how it is, we have classified it, then our mind will always pick that solution when we encounter that energy, even though the energy is slightly different. We will not look at it with fresh eyes. We will just skip the steps and cut away what doesn't fit, and the rest will just be fit into what we already have decided that this is the answer to that complex information system. So as path cutters, we cannot allow ourselves to be lazy. We must always be observant. We must always look at what's in front of us and be able to shift from the frequency-based interpretation inside the enclosure programming and into the original and true perception of what's actually in front of me. What is it made of? What is that's going on there? We could say inside this reality, perhaps not so important, but definitely important when we begin to work on the other domains and on the other dimensions. There we cannot sleep when we are encountering anything. We can't just say, oh yeah, that's an insectoid. No, you need to know exactly what insectoid it is. It's not enough just to say it's an insectoid. Is it one of the ones that are having avian genetics in it, or have the rhapside genetics? Because these differences in their genetic composition and their energy system, that is the complex information system in a totality, will tell you which faction it belongs to, and then you will know if it's hostile or something that you don't have to deal with. The genetics in life forms determine the factions they're part of, and it determines what kind of technology they are linked up to, and it determines why they are there and why they're in your field, and it determines why they have a connection to some of the regressed genetics that are inserted into your energy system. So that's where, as path cutters, we cannot sleep when we encounter things. We must be fully and truly awake, so that we are always looking at everything with the approach of fresh eyes, discerning the information system, and not just skip the steps, because that's the easy way. That's the way we miss the vital information systems that would develop a stronger complexity to the existing pattern. So the brain has been downsized into creating few patterns where everything is interpreted within that pattern. And that's how the parasites get a stronghold on us, because then we link it up to an emotional feature as well. And there you have it. You run within your own self-created program and you're stuck there in your comfort zone. But if you are constantly looking at things from a progressive, dynamic angle, where everything is a process of interpretation, everything is a process of learning, and everything is a process of recreating your original perception field. Therefore, you must scientifically work with everything you encounter, be it in yourself or in others, always being able to switch between the in-program containment programs, put it that way, that are part of your human brain field, where you're always just seeing things within the few patterns that you have created. This is the reality, and therefore you interpret within these patterns, and cut these patterns loose. That's spider web. Get rid of these spindlers of insectoid genetics that constantly pushes you into just perceiving things in the manner that you're accustomed to, and be fresh in everything that you encounter, even though it looks the same, it might be the same, but there are nuances, and these are the nuances that will make your mental patterns breach the conformity of the frequency neural network, because that's limited, and into the expansion network that goes with the density energies, where you will be able to connect to more and more nodal points of the holographic reality field that we are part of. And each time your brain loops into these more expanded versions of our reality, you reconnect via your mind field and your perception field to these holographic energy units, and they will then be pulled into your mental field, which will allow you to build a stronger and stronger perception field, from where more and more complex information systems can be discovered, detected, and work with and interpreted and understood in the correct manner, so that your mental capacity expands into being this enormously large field that are able to encompass and contain the entire universal structure, and with that, all of the levels of it, so that your mind field and your perception field is technically capable of being in contact and unified with the entire universal structure. So that's the big goal of the perception field, but we don't have to be that all the time. Again, it's a matter of pushing energy from our vibrational field, working our energy system up to producing more energy, and the complexity there, the more complex the energy system is, the more energy it can contain and the more complex information systems it can connect to and process the code layers from which will be built into your energy system and code layers, and by that make it more and more complex. So that's the goal of the path cutter abilities and traits as well, that we understand that when we do the progression work, when we work with information systems, the goal is to rebuild our energy system, not just on the vibrational level, but also to put in complex information systems that are in essence are holding the code layers of the holographic energy units. And by that, build an energy system that is capable of being in contact with and process all of the different types of density energies that our universal structure is made of. Thank you.